This disease has just robbed me of my life. It really has. 20 years of just total suffering. I mean, the emotions that I hate from people, it's beyond. I mean, just imagine a life where you can't feel positive emotions and everything's deteriorating. I mean, I love my son and I love my family, and yet I can't show them these emotions. And to feel I've lost people around us because of this, it's just abhorrent. And to feel that you're not part of society anymore because you don't have those emotions. It's just, I can't explain. Every day is just an absolutely torturous fight to be here. And fear and the love for me nearest and dearest is what keeps us here. And I just don't know how this can go on in this world today. And people are set up to fall into this. They're not being informed about what can happen. And abhorrent it is.
All right, what is going on, guys? This is Mark Millick here with the Moral Medicine YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be interviewing Mr. Ryan Clark. Ryan is a PFS patient that's had PFS for over 20 years now. He's got a very unique and unfortunately tragic story, but Ryan, it is great to have you here, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Mark. Cheers.
So, Ryan, let's start with this. What was your life like before you got PFS?
I mean, I had a great upbringing. I excelled at school. I was in the top set. Things came to me quite easily. I played a lot of sports. I was very active. As an adult, I had a good job. I was very sociable. I had challenges like everybody else, but I just took them in my stride. I just loved life. Every morning I woke up, it just felt like a joy. I was around people all the time. I just felt full of fun, and that's something. I was always full of fun, no matter what, even as an adult, and in serious situations. And it sometimes would feel inappropriate to people, but I just bubbled with enthusiasm all the time. And I generally felt full of life, and every day was just a blessing. So the polar opposite of what this disease has done to us, and there was nothing behind me to give some sort of indication of what would be ahead of me naturally. So obviously this was brought on by a drug, and that's all I can say.
So I know, you took the drug for a while and you were having a lot of these, I don't want to speak too much for you, but I know you had a lot of on the drug side effects while you were taking it and you didn't even realize the drug was causing the issue. But I guess before we jump into that, so, when did you start taking finasteride, and what was the purpose behind it?
I mean, it was over 23 years ago, Mark. Basically, I mean, I had about the size of half a centimeter hair loss on the back of my head that I couldn't notice. I was a vain guy. I wanted to look my best always. I wasn't even really bothered about the thought of losing my hair, but just by chance, I was reading an article in a reputable newspaper, and it basically was sort of recommending Propecia, and so there was a revolutionary drug for hair loss, and that there was next to no side effects. The only side effect that it said you could potentially get would be a temporary loss of libido that would stop on cessation, and that was it. So it seemed like a no-brainer, no problems, and I could just stop this in its tracks. But regardless, I wasn't that bothered about losing my hair. I just wanted to look my best always, and it just seemed the perfect solution to what wasn't really a problem, to be honest.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of guys who take this for like preliminary purposes, right? They just want to be proactive about their hair loss. I mean, a lot of guys don't even have hair loss. They just take it because they just, they're concerned about losing their hair, and they figure this is a good way to potentially stop it. So yeah. It's super unfortunate, obviously. But when you started taking the drug, I mean, how soon after did you start noticing side effects?
I mean, I think relatively soon, my libido, I mean, I was a very active guy in that arena. I had a lot of sort of, action around it. I kind of never think of the right words, which is a problem with this condition. But that dropped off quite quickly. And I noticed I wasn't interested, but because I'd been with my partner a few years, when we've been through the honeymoon period and things like that, and it was in a stable relationship, it didn't really bother us. But not long after, again, as I had a huge onset of what I learned to be anxiety. I didn't know what it was because I'd never suffered it before. It was just like a wave hit me. And then I also remember I was getting a bus into town to go and socialize with my friends. And for no reason, I felt disconnected. I felt strange. I felt weird. Just the surroundings around me felt different. And I just didn't know what it was. And it felt bizarre. But again, I had nothing to connect either to. So the anxiety and the cognition change and the emotional changes was starting. And I also remember going to the gym and not feeling as strong. And I changed my regime and increased my weights and protein intake because I noticed a loss of strength. It was probably a 10% loss for no reason. And then with time, it did come back, but not because of me training. It just did drop back in at some point later on. But I just remember these sort of things and not being able to correlate them with anything.
Okay. So, and at this time, you were still taking the drug, obviously, and you had no idea, like you said, you couldn't correlate it, all these symptoms to finasteride. Did you take it like intermittently? Were you on and off with the drug? Did you take it consistently for the entire, 15, 20 years you were taking it, or?
Yeah, I mean, because there was nothing out there in terms of forums or information about this. And I'd like to say as well, Mark, everything I'll describe today is not unique to me. Many sufferers complain of the same things, and independent scientific papers actually back up every symptom that will be sort of covered today. And there's more than what I have. But basically, I took the drug on and off. I mean, I would take it for a period of time. And I just have a few months off. Sometimes I forget to get a prescription from my doctor. So it was intermittent, and again, an independent paper says repeated use of finasteride actually correlates with severity of the disease, and that's something that when again I look back, I can see things just getting worse and worse over time. But again, I never made the correlation because I was never informed of what this drug could do.
Yeah, you and I have talked too, because I had the same experience. I took the drug for 15 months and, within the first couple of days, in hindsight, I was having symptoms. And by month like 4 or 5, I mean, for me, it's just this massive shift in cognition. And I continued taking it because I had no idea. I couldn't put the two and two together that the drug could possibly be causing me these symptoms, because it's not even really listed in the leaflet either. That's what makes it so frightening.
Yeah, I mean, even now, they've updated it twice, but it's still very short of what this disease entails. And I remember going into work, and again, when I said I felt really fortunate around what I'd acquired in my life, but I used to draft papers very easily, and I'd stumble on words, and like now, I'd be struggling to keep my thought process going, and I just lose focus and all sorts of my ability to persuade people in the workplace, which was very easy, became very difficult. I mean, people used to come to me because I had a very good eye on things, a good view, my judgment, everything was good, but it just started to evade me, and it would come back and then disappear again, and that was probably the on and off of the drug over the years. I mean, I'd have periods where I had good spells, and I'd have periods where it would just fall apart around us, and I just didn't have a clue what the hell was happening.
And I'm assuming you were going to the doctors at this point too to get an opinion from them, right?
Yeah, I mean, the prescribe. I mean, when I got the prescription, at the time you could only get via a private prescription from your GP, which I did. He didn't ask us any questions. He just rolled it off. Weeks later, I was back at the GP saying like there'd been a shift in my whole health in terms of my cognition, my emotional state, and he just put it down to changes in my personal life, and I knew that wasn't the case. He didn't connect it to the drug or anything, and the mechanisms of the drug, nothing was like sort of looked into or anything, and the doctor just put it down to changes in my personal life, like changes at work or whatever, but and then said he wanted to prescribe something for anxiety, which I was resistant to, but I knew in my heart of hearts that it was something else, but I had nothing to go on because there was no literature or anything around this drug out there at the time. And I trusted. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just out of curiosity, did you do any like blood work or anything, or any type of testing or anything like that?
I mean, nothing at the time. I just like sort of try to get on with things, and I was brought up to trust the system, and I did. So I never once considered that this drug could be harming me. I thought, especially considering it was just for cosmetic purposes, and I just trusted in it, and I would never have believed that this could happen. Even today, I still think, how can this go on? Really, it's just unbelievable. Men being cut down by a cosmetic drug in such a way.
Right, absolutely. And I asked that question because same experience with me. I went to multiple different doctors and I was taking this drug, didn't correlate that the symptoms were even related to the drug. And I had all these tests done, MRIs, EEGs, EMGs, blood work, imaging tests, and everything just came back clear and benign. I mean, there was no rhyme or reason for why I was experiencing these really significant, cognitive shifts. And it sounds like for you was a sort of a similar experience. Doctors just couldn't figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, and I mean, with time, as things got progressively worse and symptoms became more serious, then I was engaged by sort of blood work, consultants, different doctors, and they just couldn't find anything wrong with me. And to me, it was blatantly obvious because there was something wrong. But in 2006, I had testicular cancer. And also when they were doing the treatment for that, they also found that I had problems with my liver. And the problems with my liver didn't correlate with my lifestyle or anything. And I just thought I'm extremely unlucky to develop all of these problems, considering I had a very healthy lifestyle. I went to the gym, my diet was first rate. I did everything textbook, and my health was deteriorating all of the time. I just didn't have a clue, to be honest.
So you were taking
nobody else did.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, nobody else had a clue either. I mean, in the medical profession, it was just like banging your head against a brick wall. And even more so once I made the connection.
That's the unfortunate experience for, so many patients who take this drug. So you were taking it from late 90s, early 2000s, right? Until you stopped taking it.
I can't recall the exact date, Mark. I mean, I took it on and off for years. I think maybe the last time, probably 2017. But I remember when we were trying for my son, which was 10 years ago. I mean, I came off it for a year then. And then after that, I probably took it on 2 or 3 occasions. So not for long. I wasn't really bothered about my hair. And obviously my health situation was overtaken me sort of view of sort of look at me best. I was just more concerned about my health. So I think I took it on 3 or more occasions, but I think it was around then when I finally stopped. But at that point, I was hardly taking it anyway.
Okay. So when did you actually find out about post-Finasteride syndrome and that this could all be linked?
I mean, I remember taking it and having an extremely dry mouth the next day and just feeling really off. And I thought, it might be this drug, but again, I thought, well, I'm not going to take it anymore. So I just parked that, but my health was getting worse. And then I remember I suddenly stopped producing oil on my skin. I was saying something else, and I went to the doctors, and they just were clueless. And then I just started frantically Googling my symptom list, and then up popped Propecia Help, and then initial euphoria when I seen all of the symptoms I've been suffering from being experienced by thousands of guys. And then it really hit home when I found out nobody was getting better and there'd been obituaries and deaths. I was just absolutely horrified. And that was when I made the connection. But the reality of it all kicked in at that point.
So I completely relate to all that. So when you quit taking it, pretty much at that point, just completely stopped. What happened then? Did you experience any new symptoms? Did things get better for you?
I mean, again, looking back, because I stopped and started a number of times, and it wouldn't be like on the day of or the day after. I'd have periods of like sort of extreme euphoria. I mean, nobody would not take that, but it wasn't normal. And I remember not long after stopping it, I remember driving to work in the car, and some music came on, and I felt euphoric. and for no reason, I just felt very extremely aroused, which was a little bit inappropriate, really. But it was obviously different things in my body out of whack, and I went into work, and I just felt unbelievably astute, and everything about me was at its highest level, and that lasted a few days. And then it just imploded, and then it was followed by suicidal ideation, inability to think, the feeling of doom around everything, irrational behavior, which I'd experienced over the years at different points, and then just total body weakness. Me whole physicality just like sort of disappeared. It just fell apart, and again, I would try and work to get back to a certain baseline, but it was just horrific. Like, and I was going to the doctors, and they were just unhelpful at best.
Right. So, yeah, I know. If you don't mind me bringing this up, we talked about this. You had a pretty bad crash back in, I think it was 2022, just early last year, right?
Yeah.
So, when that happened, what were your symptoms at that point? How did you know you were crashing?
I mean, again, it was followed by, I was doing some exercise, and I remember doing some push-ups, and I'd been at my sister's for a bit of respite, and I remember doing some push-ups, and I just felt my whole body just, I felt extremely strong. I felt great, and obviously at this point, I was researching PFS. I knew a fair bit about it, and I was just hoping it was starting to get better. And it was things improving, and again, I had my mood and my ability to socialize. All of that was coming back, and I felt intelligent, on the money. I was focused. Everything was coming back to how it would be normally. And then when I came home, I started to feel a bit off, and it wasn't because of the flight or anything. It was just with the period of time passing, and then I just, my sleep was still bad, but I just remember about maybe a month after, as I started to feel things starting to deteriorate, I woke up during the night, and I was just absolutely racked with pain. I couldn't lift my arms. I could hardly move my legs. I mean, it was like pain, incomprehensible pain. And then I shuffled downstairs, and I tried to put things under my arms to hold my arms. My jaw was aching. I couldn't chew food. I had pains all around my whole face. I couldn't touch the cheekbones. My vision was off. My gums were receding again. My gums were bleeding. I felt as though my teeth felt hollow. My whole body felt hollow. I felt suicidal. Weight dropped off me. Over the course of 2 weeks, I lost 2 inches off my biceps, because again, you try and keep track of changes. And I went from the previous morning, I'd done 100 press-ups, not in one go, but I went from that to not being able to do another press-up again. And I couldn't go to the gym. And at the gym prior to that, I could still do a stack on occasion, and I couldn't move the bench press machine with no weight on it. And that was the end of exercise. And then I couldn't walk. It was just horrific. I mean, I'm not covering everything. I'm just trying to condense it down, but I couldn't even open a car door. I couldn't lift a cup. I couldn't put a switch on the kettle. I couldn't dress myself. And that just basically, it was just like a sudden crash in 24-hour space. And I just never thought I'd recover. I really thought, this is it. I'm going to die. And I stopped going to the toilet as well. Me colon or bowel seized, whichever. My digestive system changed. And for 7 weeks, I never went to the toilet. And the doctors weren't helping me. I was left with this. And then I had to pay privately to get cleaned out. And she said, 20 years of her job, her private clinic, she'd never seen anything like it. I was just compacted with waste. And if I hadn't have done that intervention under my own steam, I really think I would have passed away at some point from the toxicity in my body.
Wow, unbelievable. Ryan, what are your current symptoms?
Since cessation of the drug, and over the last 3 to 4 years, things have got dramatically worse. On top of what I've already mentioned, I'm in a constant distress state, emotionally, I never feel anything that is normal. I feel empty, anhedonic, suicidal. I have memory issues, thought processes aren't functioning. I generally look, if I get 2 hours sleep a night, and then I wake up in a state, often from a nightmare, and then the pain, the dramatic onset of the bone pain, the muscle pain. I've lost so much tissue. My colon is seized. I've got no strength. I'm in extreme pain. I react to foods. I have allergic reactions to all sorts, creams, oils, which results in multiple reactions. The autonomic system isn't working properly, so my blood pressure, my heart rate, I don't sweat properly. I don't react to temperature changes. I actually wrote down my list of symptoms, and I have now in excess of 100. There's malabsorption, no connection with the world. Facially, my face has changed, my jaw shrunk, I've got huge gum loss, my vision's off, my senses have changed, my bones, the facial bone is very painful. The structure of my face has changed, my cheekbones have dropped, the back of my skull has changed. I felt a shift in the plates across my skull. It's just unbelievable, really, what has happened, and it just continues unabated. And all I can describe it is feeling like a corpse that's been kept alive. I feel 100-year-old. My skin is loose. I can pull my skin like you can, or many others can. And it's just, my body just seems as though it's suffering from deprivation of multiple things that are required to keep the body in a functional state. I'm sure I've lived, well, when I said it was over 100 symptoms, I've left off quite a bit, but they are what I deal with generally every day throughout the day. There's no respite from it. I mean, again, just on top of the global tissue atrophy, something that isn't mentioned quite a lot, but I suffered penile atrophy as well, so total shrinkage. That came a few years in, so around the time of after the testicular cancer. But I've never, since the day I took that first pill, well, when I lost my libido, it's never come back. So even in periods of recovery, I'd have a slight return, a slight uptick, but I've never wanted to have sex again. I've never wanted to have sex in 20 plus years. And I've never found the female form attractive again. So that's quite unimaginable that it's took. And that's just one part of the disease that I could happily live with. It's the other parts that actually are destroying my whole body. And to think that I could accept that just says how bad this condition is. So I've been robbed of what makes a man a man. And again, just laugh and joke about things to keep people content around this, when it's actually quite abhorrent, really. So my ability to have children was dramatically affected. And I was shown to be quite infertile as well. I had tests when we were trying for children and nothing was happening. And my sperm count was found to be damaged. And that was way before making a connection to finasteride, which is now known to affect male fertility, libido, etc., penile tissue, everything again you have described.
And I have the same thing, Ron. I mean, it's like there's no relief from any of this. It's persistent. It never lets up. And I know you've had very intermittently some sort of temporary recoveries where things sort of bounce back, but the vast majority of the time, I mean, I understand you were just kind of in this place of just complete suffering, and I'm so sorry about all that.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Let me ask you this, Ryan. Yeah, I know it's hard to talk about this, so we really appreciate this. How have your family and friends reacted to this? I guess how has this affected your life ultimately, especially with your relationship?
I went from having everything, a great set of friends, people around us who I felt loved me, my family members and everything, over the years, I was noticing changes, and I would apologize for the erratic outbursts I would have for no reasons on occasion. I mean, I knew something was seriously wrong before I made the connection, but I knew my personality was changing and my love for life and all of that. So over the course of the years, I would make apologies for unexplained behaviour and just try and explain it away. But I did notice I was starting to move away from socialising over time. But when I made the connection and I told people, they generally said they'd be here for me and things like that. But the opposite has happened. People have generally either challenge you, they don't believe you, they try and normalise it, and then you get accused of moving away from them. But the opposite is actually true. So I've lost almost everybody around me, including relations. They don't want to hear it, and because they can't help you, and because it's not backed up medically, you're often seen as though it's just something you've dreamt up, even though I've physically changed dramatically over the last couple of years. But some people do offer condolences and support, but it's often short-lived. And it's obviously, I had to leave work because of it. I could no longer function at work. It's damaged my marriage and friendships. Every aspect of my life has been damaged by this. One of the worst things, and it's something that nobody other than people with this condition could relate to. You lose the ability to feel love and certain emotions. And I mean, I know I should love my son with every ounce of me, and that he means everything to me. But yet, when I hug him and I hold him tight, I feel nothing. I mean, that's absolutely abhorrent that can be humanly possible, that this drug has actually taken away the ability of the body to use a hormone called oxytocin, which allows you to feel love, and yet I feel nothing. And it makes us feel like we're not part of this world anymore. I mean, just imagine a life where you can't feel positive emotions and everything's deteriorating. I mean, I love my son and I love my family, and yet I can't show them these emotions. And to feel I've lost people around us because of this, it's just abhorrent. And to feel that you're not part of society anymore because you don't have those emotions. It's just, I can't explain. Every day is just an absolutely torturous fight to be here. And fear and the love for me nearest and dearest is what keeps us here. And I just don't know how this can go on in this world today. And people are set up to fall into this. They're not being informed about what can happen. And abhorrent it is.
It's a very difficult thing to talk about too, obviously, and this destroys so many aspects of people's lives. It's not just, your physically, I mean, but your relationships with people, your career, your outlook. I mean, it affects every fiber of your being. It's like your soul is just kind of taken out of your body with all this. It's indescribable. And look, well, I think what makes this tough for me too, Ryan, is that the fact that this is a rare disease, unfortunately. So people who take the drug and they're fine taking it, I mean, good on them, but that doesn't mean people like you and I and the thousands of other men aren't suffering. This is 100% real. This needs to be investigated. We need to figure out what is going on here. So you have a very unique story, Ryan, again, because you took it on and off for 20 years and you were experiencing symptoms very early on. So before we wrap this up here, do you have any closing statements, anything else you'd like to tell the audience?
I mean, people could never comprehend what sufferers go through with this. And when I mentioned around socially withdrawn, again, because of the neurosteroids that it lowers in the brain, which affects your emotional state and so many other things, your ability to socialize and your thirst for that and your love of that disappears. So it's not something we choose to do. We just don't connect to people anymore. But the one thing I would like to say is that the people that were supposed to protect us, as in the authorities, the drug regulatory authorities, basically have not. and I blame them as much as this pharmaceutical company that knew that this drug was dangerous and they brought it to the market, yet the authorities don't do anything to help. And what is very important that the public generally don't know is that big pharmaceutical companies actually fund the authorities, and for the FDA in England to the tune of 85% of their budget. Now, if there was ever a conflict of interests, there it is, and here lies the problem. And that's why we, as in sufferers in the thousands of this cosmetic drug, have been left with no acknowledgement, and then the effect it has on our lives, etc. But really, I'd implore and I'd plead that the authorities do the right thing and do something more about this drug, and actually recommend funding to try and find a disease, because we should not be left like this because of a drug that we were not informed about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Ryan, hey, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me. Cheers.